It's not a coincidence. This has been a deliberate policy by government officials in Fairfax not to cooperate with federal immigration authorities. And Steve Descano, the local prosecutor there, the district attorney, he's one of these left-wing social justice prosecutors who views himself as a welfare worker, not a prosecutor, has a policy, and he lists this on his own website, that he will take into consideration your immigration status. And what we've seen is a consistent pattern of charges being dropped, no pros, by this prosecutor because he doesn't want them to get a felony.
The chaos continues at many U.S. airports as lines grow longer because of staff shortages caused by TSA workers not getting paid. They're going without paychecks because Democrats refuse to pass a bill to fund DHS. Fox News contributor, college freshman Brylan Hollyhan, says Dems are willing to hurt the American people to further their goal of more illegal immigration.
And this kind of thing should remind people when they sit through this chaos to look around and say, this is how badly Democrats want illegal aliens to get to vote, that they're willing to see you sit in line and suffer. So thank a Democrat when you're waiting in these lines, but the outrage is true. Gen Z sees through it. All outrage is the entire modem of the Democrat Party. They don't have good candidates. They don't have good policies. So they're having to use fear-mongering to win the midterms. They did it in Minneapolis. Now they're doing it in airports.
A California school district is making headlines, and not for improving test scores. Chris Woodward explains.
Merced City School District in California approved a proposal from a company called Schoolyard Rap that included things like an African American infinity group for 100 African American students in a summer rap camp. These cost the district $270,000. Meanwhile, Paul Runco of Defending Education said the district has spent close to $1 million on consultants for DEI initiatives and student race-based programming.
In our view, there's really two issues here. One is spending, how much schools are spending on programs like this instead of, let's say, reading remediation or intensive tutoring. And then the racial discrimination, basically saying these programs are for students of a specific race and not for others.
Runco recommended people in other school districts and in other states take a look at what's going on where they live.
Parents really need to be aware of not only the programs that are going on in their schools, but who their school district is contracting with and how much money they're paying these consultants for what is probably illegal and highly discriminatory programming.
AFN is seeking comment from Merced City School District. I'm Chris Woodward.
And finally, officials say an oil refinery fire near the Texas coast has been put out and a shelter-in-place order has been lifted. Mayor Charlotte Moses says no one was injured in Monday's explosion at the Valero refinery in Port Arthur. More news online at afn.net and on the AFN mobile app. I'm Rusty Pugh.
If we lose this cultural war, we're going to have a hedonistic, humanistic society.
Discover the story of the culture warrior Don Wildmon and how he went head-to-head with Hollywood, Playboy, the homosexual agenda, and the Disney empire. The movement Don started paved the way for Christians to boldly stand for truth and righteousness in a hostile culture. Watch Culture Warrior today for free. Visit culturewarrior.movie.
Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildmon, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Today's Issues here on the American Family Radio Network. That's the name of this program, and it's Tuesday, March the 24th, 2026. Joining me in studio is Ed Battagliano. Good morning, Brother Ed.
Hola. Hola, senor.
Same back at you.
I have no idea where that came from.
Hola, senor.
Hola. Well, we were talking.
I know that means hello, right?
Yeah.
In Spanish.
Good. Yeah. Hello, sir.
Yeah. Senor, is that what you said? Yeah. Hey, Fred Jackson. Good morning, Fred.
Well, continue on. Bonjour.
No, give us that in French.
Bonjour, Monsieur Tim.
Bonjour. Back at you. Chris Woodward, good morning.
Give it to us in Southern.
Yeah.
Hey.
Hey, y'all.
Hey, y'all.
Hey.
Hey.
How y'all doing?
Yeah, that what's when it gets funny is to hear a Southerner mock a Southerner. That's when it gets funny right there.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for joining us, everybody, on today's issues. And if you're wondering whatever happened to Ray Pritchard, well, it's a sad story involving Bigfoot, and I don't have time to go into it right
And
now.
the Loch Ness Monster.
Hey, but
Got in on it at the tail end.
he was wrestling. He was trying to separate them.
Yeah.
The Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster. Ray was trying to be a peacemaker right there, and he got hospitalized. But hopefully he'll be back with us soon. No,
Yeah,
Ray.
we're talking about Bigfoot being hospitalized because Ray can hold his own in a scrap.
Yeah.
All right, so Ray will be back with us next week. Is that right? Okay, Ray will be back with us next week. He's traveling. I think he's moving back from Florida to KC and other things going on in his world. All right, thank you for listening to today's issues. Frank Turek will be with us momentarily at 10:15 Central Time. Frank Turek will be with us. Nice weather out there across most of the country, isn't
man,
it,
it
guys?
is glorious.
Where we live, it's really
Beautiful.
pretty.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Here in North-
Kind of almost fall-like.
Mhm.
We had some high temperatures on the weekend. Then it got a little cool yesterday,
Yeah,
and it'll eventually warm up again.
yeah. I know out west they've been having a heat wave.
Yeah.
You see this?
In fact, in Kansas City is one of the places.
Last couple days at 85 in Kansas City in March.
You know, next week when Ray is on,
Yeah,
because he's always throwing it in our face. When
He
he was
is.
down in Florida,
right.
when we were going through bad weather,
Right.
cold, and
Right.
all that. If the heat wave is still going on in Kansas City next week, we ought to tease him about that a little bit.
Yeah, that's right. Why-
Let's tease the man of God.
85 in Kansas City. I don't think he's going to care.
No.
He's going to welcome that. All right, a lot going on in our world. Chris, what's first up?
Well, we're still watching the situation with Operation Epic Fury, and I say that because based on a story on our website, afn.net, Israeli airstrikes have battered Iran's capital. Iran, meanwhile, has fired missiles and drones at Israel's Tel Aviv and other sites across the Middle East. This, as President Donald Trump says the U.S. has been in talks with the Islamic regime, although Iran saying that's not true. I have a little bit of audio here. It's 20 seconds of the president talking about so-called negotiations with Iran. Clip 4.
We're giving it 5 days, and then we're going to see where that takes us. And I would say at the end of this period, I think it could very well end up being a very good deal for everybody. As good as if we went all the way and just literally annihilated the place, which if we don't have to do that, that would be a good thing, not a bad thing.
What cathedral's he speaking in?
He was in Memphis yesterday.
At his
I know,
venue.
but listen to that. He must have been in some kind of big hall.
Yeah, I think he was.
It was
Yeah.
reverberating there. His talk was okay. So I'm trying to follow this as story, and I know that in war, even sometimes leaders are deceptive on purpose because it gives them a strategic advantage. I'm not saying President Trump's deceitful here, but what is it? What is this 5-day ultimatum? We had a 48-hour ultimatum, and now that went away. And this is getting like Trump's tariffs. You know, one day you're on, one day you're off. What is he talking about? 5 days, which is different from the 48 hours.
Yeah. We have given them a 5-day pause in which we're not going to go after Iran's energy sites.
Why are we tipping them off on that?
That's a good
I know
question.
y'all don't have answers necessarily for this. I'm just curious.
Well, now again, we're making assumptions, and like we said in our story meeting, the American public's going to be the last to know anything, because
that's a democracy right there.
Well, we do give leeway to our political leaders when they're waging war to do it as they have the experts, the generals. So this is to be expected. That we're not quite sure exactly what's going on. So let me just say that's the most obvious thing.
Now tell us what's going on.
And now I'm going to tell you what I think.
Okay.
Okay, which I also can't prove.
Okay.
Is I think that coming up to the end of the 48-hour window that President Trump had initially given, which expired last night, they wanted time, I think, to get
Who's they?
the administration to get the Marines closer and to at all times encourage whoever's in charge, and I have no idea who that is. I think one of the things I've read is that the Trump administration had been in conversation with a parliamentary leader in Iran. High ranking.
Yeah.
So to give some room for discussions on how to end this. But if that does not end, 5 days, I think, gives them more time to get Marines in position if he wants to take Carg Island or anything else. And I don't think the president wants to start hitting infrastructure. Initially, we're talking about power plants because that can turn the Iranian people against you. That kind of stuff has to be rebuilt afterwards. We hit their military sites. We don't have to rebuild that. We don't want them rebuilt. But if we start blowing up power plants, we're going to feel obligated to rebuild those. So I think the president, in saying they were having good talks, I think that was strategically deceptive or at least vague to give the U.S. time to be able to take the next step. That's my sense from what I've been reading from various experts.
Fred?
Boy, I'd like to be in the room with Secretary of Defense, Secretary of War, Hegseth, and
They won't
Trump.
let you in, though,
They
Fred.
won't let me in. I'd love to hear the discussion that's going on because Ed has done an excellent job as usual as speculation goes on this. But you know, one thing we've learned, I think a lot of people are surprised at the depth of the military capability of Iran.
Yes.
You know, Prime Minister Netanyahu has been telling us for years just how bad these people are and what they are willing to do. And we found out, we discussed yesterday, we found out that they have missiles that can reach 2,500 miles.
Yeah. And those were dispersed. We didn't hit those yet.
No. And they're still sending missiles. Last night, one landed in Tel Aviv, did some very severe damage there. So after all the bombing, both from Israel and both the United States, they're still capable. They're still launching. So, if anybody had any doubts of the threat of Iran to the United States and to Israel, that doubt is gone. You know, Iran has shown their cards that way. So I was listening to an interview last night on Tony Perkins' program, Washington Watch, listening to Colonel Bob McGinnis. Mm-hmm. He was the last guest on the show last night. He was asked about everything that's going on, the 5 days, et cetera, et cetera. But he said, one thing for sure, that the United States has got to put in place a guarantee. In order for this to be some kind of victory, the Strait of Hormuz has to be safe.
Yes.
If that does not happen in this agreement, then basically a lot of people are going to say this was a waste of time. Because this is about oil. It really is. It's about oil, and that's why, you know, prices of gas are going up, et cetera, et cetera. If we cannot secure a safe Strait of Hormuz so that oil can get out of there, then the victory, if you want to call it, will be very hollow.
Which is why my concern is, and again, I trust President Trump and Pete Hegseth and others. To an extent, I know their heart is, in their heart and mind, they want to do what's best for the United States, and that also extends to the world economy. I understand that. But my concern is that in order to get that victory that you just talked about, they are going, which I think only happens if you have regime change.
Yeah.
In Iran. These mullahs, these people who are in charge of this country of Iran, they're talking about wiping out desalination plants around the Middle East so that people die of thirst. These people are murderous.
Yes.
Okay? My concern is that this is going to escalate, and before you know it, we're going to be sending over armored divisions, army divisions. We're going to be, setting up in Kuwait like we did with the first Gulf War, because we're going to have to invade Iran and in order to get rid of this government.
Yeah.
And who knows where that winds up? You got the Houthis in Yemen threatening to bottle up the Red Sea Strait.
Yes.
Okay, this thing could spiral out of control. I think ultimately what President Trump is trying to accomplish here, we cannot have that murderous regime in Iran.
Yeah.
That their capabilities far exceeded what we thought. You give them nuclear weapons, they'll threaten Europe with annihilation.
Yeah.
And in more happy news,
Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry
Ed.
about that.
That's you always bless me.
I'm just a
with
ray
your-
of sunshine, aren't I?
Yes, you are. You just you get up every day with just a great happy outlook on.
I'm
on
like
the,
a
the
drop
life.
of golden sunshine coming
You
down
are.
the hall.
That's what happens to Bruins fans when they go 5 years without a
More than 5 years without a Stanley Cup.
All right, you're listening to today's issues on American. If you're still listening to today's issues on American Family Radio, Tim, Ed, Fred, and Chris, and joining us now is Frank Turek. Frank is host of "I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist," heard Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. Central Time and 4 p.m. Central Time on Sunday afternoons. I don't have enough faith to be an atheist. Good morning, Frank.
Good morning, gentlemen. How is everyone?
Good. Where are you today? You traveling?
I am in Grand Junction, Colorado tonight. We're at Colorado Mesa University. We're talking about If God, Why Evil? And then on Thursday night, we're going to be at Utah Valley University. That's where Charlie was murdered. So we are going to reach out to the campus there and do an event there at 7 p.m. And then maybe more close to home next Tuesday, the 31st, I'll be at Ole Miss.
Oh, just down the road.
There. Yes, right down the road.
When will you be there?
Tuesday night of March 31st. So that's a week from today. Ole Miss.
Okay, you going to come over here see us or no? Or you don't know? I know.
Unfortunately, I got to go right back because we got to go to Rochester, New York the next day. So
okay,
won't be able to make it all the way to Tupelo.
So that's a no.
Well,
you're in the neighborhood. Let me tell you, my mom would have made me feel really guilty if I got this close and didn't stop by and see her.
Well, I expected Frank to say, "Are you going to come see me?"
Okay, well, your schedule doesn't permit, Frank.
Exactly
we understand that.
Ole Miss campus is about an hour from us, but that's okay, Frank. Be that way. That's where you want to do it.
I'm looking forward to seeing you, Tim. At Ole Miss.
No, listen. I'm wearing my maroon and white right now.
I see it.
But I do go over to Ole Miss from time.
Are you going to be at the pavilion where J.D. Vance spoke?
I did go.
No, it's a different room. I'm not exactly sure what the room is, but no, we're not gonna have 10,000 people there like J.D. did. I wish, but no.
So Frank, you are traveling the country. You're continuing. You were doing on-campus events even before your friend Charlie Kirk was. You've been doing You've been doing that for a long, long time. What's your goal when you travel and go? I mean, you do a lot of traveling. You can speak to a lot of campuses. You never know how many people are going to show up or not. What's your objective?
Well, the objective is to encourage the Christians and put a stone in the shoe of the skeptic, meaning we want people to see the reasonableness of Christianity. And on a college campus, it's probably the most anti-Christian real estate in America. So we want to bring the truth of Christianity to these college campuses. And so everybody's invited. We do a presentation, and we have a lot of time for questions. And if people go to our YouTube channel, the Cross-Examined YouTube channel, 2 words, they'll see over 3,000 videos up there. Most of them are from the college campus. Most of them are Q&A videos where someone asks a question and I try and answer. And so they're short Q&As and on just about every topic you can imagine.
All right. Well, where can people watch those?
At our YouTube channel, Cross-Examined YouTube channel. By the way, at Ole Miss, we're going to be at the Ole Miss Student Union. And it's 6:30 next week, the 31st, 6:30 p.m. Central Time.
Yeah, that's Ole Miss's Central Time. You're going to be on the campus of Ole Miss, University of Mississippi, because we have a lot of listeners maybe who want to come, at least within driving distance. Again, when and where?
It's going to be 6:30, March 31st, Ole Miss. It's the Gertrude C. Ford Ole Miss Student Union. That's where we're going to be.
Is this open to the public or just students on campus?
No, it's open to anyone. So anyone can show up.
Well, folks,
and I don't
listen.
know. I don't know what the capacity of it is, but get there a little bit early.
If you've never seen Frank in person, and you live in Northeast Mississippi, it's a great opportunity for you to go see him.
Or even if you live outside of Northeast, but you're right.
Yeah, sure, within driving
Ole Miss
distance.
is in Northwest Mississippi.
Yes. Okay.
Right, and even if there's a friend of yours that lives in Tupelo, if he was a real friend, he'd drive over there.
Yeah.
It's not that bad of a drive. I made it.
Hey,
made it last October.
You think he's talking to me?
I think that was a shot at you, Tim.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay. How should I respond?
Yeah,
I
would
think
he
you should
get on
respond in
campus
kind.
with the Mississippi State pullover on?
Oh, if I show up at Ole Miss
allow
with my maroon Mississippi State,
Yeah.
they won't take kindly to that. I don't
They
think.
didn't. They didn't let me bring my cowbell in when Vice President
Well,
Vance was there.
they view that as a weapon.
Yeah, yeah. There was, however, a bold guy in the audience. I saw him. He was wearing an MSU cap, and I was like,
Yeah.
"That is a bold move, sir."
Well, all right, Frank. Well, listen, brother, you're doing great and wonderful work, and we're proud to have you on our network. How many years now have you been doing I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist?
Oh, I want to say since 2008. I think it's been that long. Tim.
Wow, 18
So it's been a
years.
while.
Yeah.
Well, when you hit 20, we'll do something small and meaningless for you, but we will try to.
We'll send you a plaque.
We will try to commemorate 20 years. That's pretty amazing.
And let the record show that I was the one who called Frank and asked him to be on our network.
I think.
But he still won't drive an hour to come.
Well, yeah.
Turnabout
but I would,
is-
but
turnabout is
I
fair
think
play,
I'm going to be
Frank.
down in my back on that day. And so that would hinder me driving over. But otherwise, I'd be there.
Hey.
Yeah.
Hey, it'll hinder him driving over after he plays 18 holes of golf. Just can't.
Frank knows me all too well. There's my. All right, Frank.
Just can't quite make it.
All right. Well, we'll see how it works out. Maybe you'll see my shiny
smiling face.
Smiling face. We'll see you. Thank you, Frank.
I hope so. Thanks for your prayers, man, especially for Thursday night at Utah Valley. We're going to need it. That's
amen.
where
that's right.
Charlie was murdered. So
that's right.
All that'll be broadcast on our YouTube channel, too, so people can see it.
Okay. Thank you, Frank. See you.
Thanks, guys.
All right. All right. We ask people to do say a prayer for Frank. That's going to be a very emotional time, I'm sure, for everybody involved. For those who don't know the backstory, Frank Turek, the gentleman you just heard right there, who is on our network on the weekends with his show, as he said, going back to 2008, I remember calling and inviting him to be on our network with a weekend show. He was personal friends with Charlie Kirk. In fact, he was Charlie Kirk's mentor, especially on biblical issues, because Charlie was learning in his faith. Charlie got started more involved in politics and government and rallying young people to be involved from a conservative point of view. But then he began to grow in his Christian faith and became as interested or more interested in sharing the gospel of Christ with students, as well as teaching them how to be effective in politics. So Frank was his mentor when it came to biblical apologetic type issues. So in fact, Frank was with Charlie Kirk when he was assassinated. Frank shared that story with us. You can see Frank in the videos. Frank was in the car that took Charlie Kirk to the hospital. Mm-hmm. Basically, he
did CPR.
He tried to do everything he could to save Charlie's life, but it was not going to happen. So Frank is going back to the university where it happened. That's what he was saying. For those
and this is his first trip there, I think. Is that what he's
first
saying?
trip back?
First trip back since then.
So say a prayer for Frank.
And pray for his ministry. Listen, like he said, college campuses are the most anti-God pieces of real estate scattered around our country, and brave men and women who love Jesus Christ will go to these college campuses, very hostile environments oftentimes, because there's a lot of hunger on college campuses. So pray for ministries like that that are reaching out to these young people because they need Jesus.
Amen. We're going to take our break just a little bit early here. And when we come back, we will continue on with the news of the day. I'm Tim with Ed and Fred and Chris. Again, if you're going to apply to be a host on this show, you're going to have a one-syllable name. So notice ours: Fred, Ed, Tim, and Chris. And Brent, our producer. Yes. And Cole, our video guy. See there?
He's the video guy.
So, all right. We shall return momentarily with more of today's issues on AFR.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildmon.
I went visiting one day to see a family that had attended our church. I was met at the home by a little boy who was about, I'd say 5 or 6 years of age. He told me that his parents were home and then ran inside to tell his mother that that fella from the church is here. Well, once inside, I began a conversation with the mother, and of course it centered around the church. The little boy was real excited about having company, and he kept trying to be a part of the conversation. After we had talked a few minutes, the little boy finally got a question in. "When is that man with a mustache going to be in your church again?" Now, usually I can identify any question a young child is trying to ask, but that one really stumped at me. I racked my mind about a man with a mustache. I knew of no one in our church who had a mustache, nor did I know of anyone who had ever been in our church who wore a mustache. I tried to dig a little more information from the child with the hope that I could answer his question. "Which man is that?" I asked. "You know," he said, "the one that talked." Again, I searched my mind and could not remember anyone who had ever talked in our church who had a mustache. I thought of all our church school teachers. None of them had a mustache. I tried to remember all who had preached. I didn't remember any of them having a mustache. I was about to decide that the child was confused when my memory recalled that several months earlier I did invite a fellow minister of mine to preach at our church, and indeed he did have a mustache. After remembering that a man with a mustache did indeed talk in our church, I knew immediately why it was so difficult for me to identify him as the person the little boy spoke of. You see, the person the child asked about was black. I invited him to preach for me. He was a good friend of mine. But I remembered my friend as a black man, and the child remembered him simply as a man with a mustache. Now, had I been asked, "When is the black man going to be in your church again?" I would have immediately known the person of which the child spoke. The color of his skin would have been my identifying mark. But for the little boy, the major difference in my black friend and the rest of us was not the color of his skin, but the fact that he wore a mustache. Racial prejudice, regardless of which direction it comes from, is something which has to be learned. Little children do not have it until they are taught it. The man from Galilee once said, "The kingdom of God belongs to men who have hearts as trusting as these little children. And anyone who doesn't have their kind of faith will never get into the kingdom's gates." That little child taught me a valid lesson that day, that there are other distinguishing characteristics about a person other than the color of his skin. Maybe one day some of us adults will be able to remember a man by his mustache rather than the color of his skin.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildmon, a production of the American Family Association.
For he has rescued us from the dominion of darkness and brought us into the kingdom of the Son he loves. Colossians 1:13.
American Family Radio. This is Today's Issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of Today's Issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of Today's Issues.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Today's Issues on American Family Radio. Thanks for listening to AFR. The name of this show is Today's Issues. We're here every Monday through Friday. Friday, we play trivia. We call that Learning University, and we'll be here Friday for that. I mentioned this before, and sometimes, you know, as you get older, some things get stuck in your head. So we got a new building here, 3 years old, still considered new. This modern faucets that have been placed in restrooms and other places, but particularly in restrooms.
With the motion detectors, you mean?
The motion detectors, yes. The motion detectors are very annoying.
Yes.
And I don't know who thought we could ever improve on just a handle. You know what I'm saying? Or a knob. It turns the water on, and it turns the water off. I don't know what more you need. Why you have to put these machines in these restrooms that you have to contort yourself and guess where to put your hand so that the water actually comes out. I just had to get that off my chest because I've not said anything about it before.
Oh, yes, you have. I have been in the restroom. And I will say this. This is not, I hope
Are we in agreement here?
We are in agreement.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely, generally speaking. And I will comment on this just a second. But I will say that you seemed, like some people have like bad luck in life.
Right.
You do have...
Like Mississippi State football fans?
Yes.
Oh, bad luck doesn't help.
You do have the worst luck when it comes to these motion detectors.
I do.
They just cannot... They just can't either see your hand or you're always putting it in the wrong place.
No.
Same thing for the paper towel dispensers.
For me or for you? Or for both
you.
of us? Yeah.
For finding
Paper towel.
that. Now, I will say this. I am in absolute agreement.
Okay.
Not everything is an improvement.
No, I don't.
Just because you can do it differently.
Thank you.
There is nothing wrong with a handle.
A handle or a knob.
Or a knob to turn. I
Water.
prefer the handle because you don't have to touch it after your hands are clean.
Right.
You just use your wrist or
Right.
something, bump it up or down. That is peak technology.
That's right. You've reached the top.
You've reached the top.
As man has evolved,
Yes.
and I don't mean that evolutionary
Right.
Monkey to man type
Right.
way. I'm talking about just our technology.
Yeah.
I think we've reached the pinnacle with a knob
Yes.
or a handle.
We turn the water on and off. There's a lot of things about
You know what this is?
modern cars that are the same way. I just think, listen,
Yeah.
I can put my foot on the brake at a stoplight. I do not want the car shutting off for a couple of seconds.
Thank you. Now, they say you can adjust those things.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
you risk a lot of other problems once you start messing with those.
Yes, absolutely.
Those gadgets on your phone.
Yeah, absolutely.
So anyway.
Anyway, and I generally like technology.
Right.
But sometimes you've reached the pinnacle of human achievement. Don't mess with
how
it.
much gas can you really save?
You don't.
By a car turning off for 30 seconds and turning back on.
Yeah.
Tell
And
me.
you try to accelerate, and you got to wait for that thing to turn back on.
Mine's gone off a couple of times the last month. I don't know what's going on.
I shut mine off manually.
Okay.
So anyway,
I'm talking about the car stops. I know you can change this, so I don't need people emailing me. I know I can do that. I just hadn't taken the time to do it, but I need to do it. But I'm talking about the car stops.
Yeah.
Shuts off.
Yeah.
Shuts off at a red light, and then it won't start up again automatically. That's happened to me at least.
Oh,
really?
That's something that's something going on there.
That's what I think. Something going on. So maybe I hit something wrong or tapped the wrong button.
Could be.
Or whatever. Bad attitude. I don't know what's caused that, but anyway, that's really a.
And let me just say one last thing
because people behind you
Yes.
They think you're texting.
Yes.
They think they think you're texting, you're not paying attention.
Yeah.
And so they give you about 10 seconds max, and then they start honking or driving by you with giving you the finger. That, you know what I'm saying?
Yes. Of warning, of scolding.
Of scolding. And I'm just saying, no, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say that. Shouldn't be ugly about it. But they do honk.
Yeah.
Like you're, and I'm going like
you're watching YouTube
and
videos.
like you want to get out of your car and say, excuse me.
Yeah, don't do that anymore.
I've got a real issue here. I am paying attention, and I'm not texting.
Yeah,
okay? You
don't want to get out of your car.
No,
someone will shoot you.
Something bad happens.
And let me just end this totally worthless conversation.
Yes, and then let's move on because I didn't want to talk about this.
When
anyway.
I talk about reaching the pinnacle of human achievement, and you don't have to change anything, that's the way I feel about pineapple on pizza.
Thank you.
All right, there. I've said it.
No.
Let's move on.
After pepperoni and meat, cheese, you don't need pineapple.
That's it. That's like landing on the moon and saying, no, that's not good enough.
Right. All right. Chris, what's your next story?
Speaking of human achievement, there are members of Congress that want to build a women's history museum in Washington, D.C. As a matter of fact, there is a bill from Representative...
Build a what now?
A women's history museum in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
And there is a bill from Representative Nicole Malliotakis, who is a Republican from New York. What's that?
Nicole did this?
Well, she wants to have the museum built on the National Mall in Washington, D.C.
Which is fine.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
we're running out of room on that mall.
Human
go
achievement
ahead.
yes. For women?
Well,
fine.
The issue with this story is House Democrats do not want the Women's History Museum because Republicans want only biological women to be honored in the Women's History Museum. As a matter of fact, House Democrats shot down the bill, or at least voted against it, in the House Administration Committee.
Be careful using terms like shot down. In
Rejected.
this environment we live in, I'm just saying, reject.
Yeah,
Thank you.
They rejected this bill that would build this on the National Mall. And I talked to Concerned Women about this, Concerned Women for America. Here is Maggie McNeely talking about this, and she's urging people to contact their members of Congress to share their thoughts about this. Clip 9.
If we're going to be spending taxpayer dollars on a women's museum, we need to make sure that there are only women featured and that real women are celebrated for their accomplishments and their contributions to American society, and that we're not highlighting men who are confused. You know, what we're seeing is that men are stealing the accomplishments of women when they are pretending to be women and competing in their sports categories or participating in their industries as women and not as men. We really just need more people to speak out whenever they see this sort of thing going on, because that's the only way we're going to stop it in the end.
In my opinion, we don't need another museum on the mall in Washington, D.C. I don't care if it's a women's or...
You don't care about women, Tim?
Right.
Or their accomplishments?
This a trick question?
Yes.
Trying to navigate
yes,
this.
It is. It's a trick question.
No, I think women are already celebrated.
Yeah.
We say George and Martha Washington's Mount Vernon when we go there. We don't just say George Washington. So
this is bizarre. I honestly do not know why the Democrats continue to insist, whether we have a museum on women or not.
I know.
Okay? That's a separate issue.
We can disagree or agree. I don't care. Go ahead.
Yeah, but why do Democrats continue to insist that this is a hill to die on? Okay, that we're going to have a museum. Let's say that's a good idea, and 98% of Americans think that's a great idea. Let's highlight the accomplishments of women with a museum. And to your point, another museum. But let's say they do.
Okay.
Why do Democrats continue to insist, no, we want to include some men in this museum about women? Same thing, we want transgender women, a.k.a. men, playing in women's sports, when the vast majority of people in this country don't want to do that. But Democrats insist, we're going all the way to the mat on this issue.
To answer your question, I would bring up a recent quote from President Donald Trump, who in this year's State of the Union said, and I quote, "These people are crazy."
Well, I don't think that the trans issue is a kill shot. That's probably again bad metaphor.
Rejection.
But no, in terms of the voters, I don't think that is going to be at the top of their list of what's important to them. But when you get down, it is important, down that list, it is important. And if a race is close, Democrats could find, all things being equal between the two parties, this may be something that may turn voters against Democrats. I do not know why they continue to insist on standing on that hill.
I'm with you, brother. I don't know. Not all, but a lot of these Democrats are just God haters.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to say it. By God haters, I mean they're against God's nature.
Yeah.
Okay, God made men and women separate, boys and girls separate. You know what? And the whole world's known that for thousands of years. That's why whether you go to Bangladesh,
right,
or you go to Alaska, or you go to Pakistan, you know what? You're going to go there, and you know what you're going to find? You're going to find men's and women's restrooms.
Yeah.
They're going to be separated.
And in those countries, men try to go in women's restrooms, you can get a beating.
That's right. Mm. And you know what? You go to any one of those places I mentioned, you know what you're going to find? Men and women's changing areas separated. Men's and women's clothing separated. Men's and women's sports separated. Boys and girls sports separated. Because that's the way because everybody knows that's the separation, that there's a divide between male and female.
Right.
And what these Democrats want to, not all of them again, John Fetterman, I don't know where he stands on this, but I imagine he's a common sense guy. There's a few of them. But a lot of these Democrats, they hate the God who created male and female. Now, they won't say it like that necessarily, but their actions prove this over. They prove this over and over again. Go ahead, Fred.
Well, this story that Chris just gave us, though, it points to the problem within the Democratic Party. They are so beholding to this progressive wing of the party, the Squad and others. So that's the reason to address what Ed was talking about. I think the Democrat hierarchy is well aware where the public is with this issue, but they can't afford to make that progressive wing angry.
That's true.
So they're willing to take a gamble and go public saying, no, we don't like this stipulation that Republicans want with this museum for women.
Yeah, but it's just think about how bizarre it is that you're opposing a women's museum on the mall in Washington D.C. because you want to insist that males who call themselves women are allowed in to the women's exhibition.
Yep.
I mean, exhibit hall. All right, next story, Chris.
I'm going to circle back to national politics here in just a moment. But first, I want to mention this. I've been here almost 16 years, and one of the first people that I helped AFN cover was an abortionist named Kermit Gosnell. Gosnell is a former Philadelphia abortionist who was convicted of first-degree murder in the brutal killings of 3 infants born alive during illegal late-term abortions at his notorious clinic there in the Philadelphia area. And Gosnell died yesterday in prison. He was 85, and I covered that for a story that we're airing today for AFN with help from a guy named Stephen Ertelt of Life News, who himself has a story about Gosnell. Clip 11.
He became infamous for killing babies in what was called live birth abortions. And he was convicted of multiple life sentences for killing these babies in these live birth abortions, as well as getting 30 years on a federal drug charge. So not only did Kermit Gosnell kill thousands and murder thousands of babies at his abortion clinic, he also ran a pill mill as well. So not surprising that he was involved in multiple different types of illegal activities there at his abortion business. You know, honestly, this is a good reminder for people that we need to get right with Jesus. This is somebody who engaged in brutal, evil practices. And unfortunately, I don't think there's any indication this man claimed to know Christ as his Savior and had a relationship with God. And it just is a good reminder that we need to do that, unlike Kermit Gosnell did.
Now, I bring this up because we have covered this situation for years, as I mentioned, and it goes to show you the difference between AFN and something like NPR. They are not going to air a soundbite like we just played. They're not going to tell you the truth about the horrors that Kermit Gosnell did while he was alive. And that is why I would strongly recommend people follow AFN, as well as people like the Christian Post and others who do actual stories like this. Life News is another example.
How can people get access to AFN online, and then even get articles delivered to their email address?
Thank you. AFN is the website, afn.net, and that is the website for American Family News. We do radio and print news. And the great thing about our website, because a lot of people, they just don't have time, you can go to our website, and if you haven't done so already, go to afn.net. You can give us your email address, and once a day for free, we're going to send you an email with about 5 or 6 stories, including things like this, to keep you and yours informed. And it's a way to get news from a Christian perspective, which is what we do every day.
About stuff that's happening all over the world.
Yes, and we cover Iran. We cover things like Mark Wayne Mullen being the DHS secretary. He was confirmed. All kinds of stuff, political, national news.
Every couple of days, you guys send out the American Family News timeshare offer.
Yes, we do.
Which is that's a new feature that we have for our emails. So
you can timeshare with somebody in our newsroom that's got a place in Belize.
That's what I'm saying. All right, you're listening to Today's Issues on AFR. Next story, Chris.
Oh, well, I mentioned Mark Wayne Mullen. He has been confirmed as DHS
You don't get any more Southern than Mark Wayne.
Mark Wayne. Mark Wayne
Mullen.
He's the senator from Oklahoma.
Yeah, a former senator now. He was confirmed after a pretty lengthy confirmation battle. Of course, Senator Rand Paul had issues with things that Mullen had to say about Paul being attacked by a neighbor several years ago.
Did Rand Paul vote against him?
He voted against him.
Yeah.
There's some bad blood right there.
Now, so Mark Wayne Mullen is confirmed. He's going to be running DHS. And what better time to enter a job than during a partial government shutdown? But for anybody curious as to who's going to replace Mullen, I've already got that answer. Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt has appointed Energy Executive Alan Armstrong to replace or serve in Mullen's position until an election comes up later in what would have been Mullen's term here. I'm not familiar with Alan Armstrong, but the Associated Press says he's an energy executive, obviously coming from a state like Oklahoma. It's probably good you have somebody involved with energy.
All right. Now, you may not know the answer to this because states do things differently. But will this gentleman who's replacing Senator Mullen, will he serve until a special election later this year, or until Senator Mullen's term was going to be up and he would have had to run for re-election?
He's going to serve the rest of the term.
Okay.
According to the AP story I'm looking at here, which I'll share on our Today's Issues Facebook page.
Okay. Yeah, I think the governor appoints, that's a good question. I think the governor appoints a person to serve out the term. And then
there'll be primaries.
Exactly.
The last months of his term will be filled by Armstrong, who under Oklahoma law must agree to not run for a full term later.
Oh, so Armstrong cannot run for that spot permanently after
that rule's in place.
Yeah, that's odd. That seems odd.
I want to say when in Mississippi, when Governor Bryant appointed Cindy Hyde Smith to be a senator, there was like some language in there
to replace Thad Cochran, who passed away.
Yeah, and then there was states do it differently. I mean, there are like rules. So Oklahoma today, it could be another state tomorrow that does it slightly different.
Fred, you got anything to add to this?
No, I think Mullen is going to be an excellent head of the Department of Homeland Security. I think there is going to be a deal. There are negotiations underway to end this stalemate, and so that TSA can get funded and they can get back to work. So I think that's going to be resolved fairly soon, based when I read this morning that the White House and a delegation of senators got together last night, and they're ironing out some details. So hopefully that will end, and we'll get TSA back in our airports getting paid once again.
Yeah.
Kristi Noem, and this happens in politics, she fairly or unfairly, she had become like the whipping boy for the Democrats and the liberals, and then she had a I guess President Trump viewed her as a liability.
Yeah.
political liability because all anybody was talking about on this was Kristi Noem, Barbie, and all this stuff.
And she shot a dog.
She shot. Yeah, that was a. Yeah, she did do that.
But they kept bringing that up.
And she filmed a commercial promoting Department of Homeland Security, which they say cost a lot of money.
Yeah,
and
it did.
It was. Anyway, she had become the reality was she had become a political liability for President Trump, and so he moved her to another department, much less lower profile. And so he asked this gentleman, Markwayne Mullin, senator from Oklahoma, to leave his Senate post. That's a big deal. I don't know.
It is.
I mean, to leave a U.S. Senate office to go, but it's also a big deal what he's going to be doing. That is to serve the President Trump at the Department of Homeland Security. And I think, like you, Fred, I think he'll do an excellent job. And he's a new face, a new administrator. And he's also, got experience.
Yeah, Kristi Noem ran into problems on a number of fronts. One of them, there was a division within the department between Tom Homan, Trump's border czar, and Kristi Noem with regards to priorities on deportations. Tom Homan just wanted to focus on the real bad guys, the guys who had committed crimes since entering this country illegally. Kristi Noem cast the net very wide. Even people who had not committed any crimes, she seemed to be focused on, I want big numbers out there of people getting deported. Whereas Tom Homan says, let's get the bad guys first. The ones who are committing crimes, let's get them out of here. And then we can go after these others. And I hesitate to try to frame them as the at least peaceful, law-abiding, illegal immigrants.
Right.
It's that's the only way to frame that. So there was division there, and then the president, I think, was really quite upset with this idea that she spent so much money on commercials that featured her.
Yeah.
In it. So
I guess I don't want to talk anymore about the Barbie insult that Democrats hurled at her and people in Hollywood and everything.
They never would have done that to a liberal woman.
They would never have done that to a liberal woman, and it's not fair. She was a pretty lady, and she was always, quote unquote, dolled up. And the ads featuring her, I am not saying she deserved it by any means. I'm just saying the Democrats, because of that, the Democrats are always able to undercut what she was doing. Yeah. And I agree with Tom Homan's approach. You're not going to get the American people on board if you don't make a very public statement saying and follow through with a policy that says we are going after bad guys.
Yeah.
Because I think almost all Americans would agree those are people we should either prosecute and put in prison, like Tim says, or we get them out of here, send them back, and then make sure they can't come back in again. That, to me, is the more common sense approach, and you have to have the person running that process on board with what the president wants to do. And if you're getting pushback from someone like Kristi Noem, hey, President Trump was very kind and gracious to give her another post.
Yeah.
Southern Shield, I guess is what it's called. But
he bumped her downstairs.
Yeah. So she's still employed, but it's not going to be as high profile. This guy, by the way, I'm looking at the article on AFN.net, says that he because of his past, he was a former mixed martial arts fighter, collegiate wrestler, who led early morning workout sessions in the members-only house gym, and as a result became close with members of both parties, and is often seen as a negotiator in partisan Washington. Surely there are things that both parties can agree with when it comes to immigration. Let's start there. So
he said that, or you said that?
This is the article that we have up on AFN.net. It's an Associated Press article talking about the fact that Markwayne Mullin has just been confirmed. So they're talking about his past and what people are hoping for as he enters that position.
You're listening to Today's Issues on American Family Radio. Tim, Ed, Fred, and Chris. Chris, what's next story?
63% of Americans support age limits for their elected officials. That's according to a new poll from the Daily Mail and something called JL Partners. What's very interesting about this is that new poll, which again, 63% of Americans want an age cutoff, that comes at the same time that 87-year-old Representative Maxine Waters has decided she's going to run again. By the way, if you're curious as to what they think the age cutoff is, it's 70 years of age. So if this were in place, Maxine Waters would be way past the cutoff age.
She's how old?
She's 87, and she's going to give it another couple of years.
She doesn't look a day over, saying, what would you say, 84? I don't think so.
I was going to say a day over 90.
I think she looks
doesn't
older
look a day
than
over
her
90?
age.
Yeah.
But I don't want to
Now
say
that's
anything.
disparaging.
I don't know.
Like Christy Nome. We just criticized about saying something about Christy Nome.
Okay, Tim.
Now we're going after. Who are we going after here?
Hey, I didn't know you were such a purist when it comes to these kinds of things.
Yeah.
I'm not. Pile on. Maxine Waters. Yeah, Maxine's seen her better days.
Republicans are the same thing. We're talking about Chuck Grassley.
Chuck Grassley made some kind of comment that was to the effect of, if I can still run a couple of miles a day and hoe a row of corn, I'm going to run, or something.
How did he say that, Chris?
He's in his 90s.
He's not doing that. He's
What?
not hoeing his garden.
I'm going to pull it up. By the way, I interviewed him one time years ago. Let me tell you this. Don't ever make small talk with Senator Grassley about agricultural stuff, because he will talk you under the table and you'll feel about this big.
Well, maybe he can do it. Maybe he's still. I shouldn't say that. What do I know? But someone that old is still out in his garden hoeing weeds and
hold on
and that would be extraordinary if he's still doing it.
He began jogging at age 65 and famously ran 3 miles 4 times a week for decades. He continued running this regimen until recently, according to the internet.
I told you.
He did that. He ran how long?
Oh, like 3-4 miles a day.
Yeah.
He has
for 30 years,
and he has left open the possibility of a 2028 run, according to the story a few months ago.
He doesn't mention that he doesn't have any shins left.
I withdraw my sarcastic comment.
Listen, the people that would have to vote on age limits are the people we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They're not going to vote themselves a shutdown at age 70.
Same thing with term limits. You're going to have to put this in the Constitution,
right?
You know, through a state-led effort.
But I don't. At least by 80, you would think you want to go to the House and enjoy.
I don't understand
something
that.
other than going into
These people just love being
Senate
called,
hearing.
Yeah, they love being called congresswoman or senator.
All right, we'll be back in 5 minutes. Stay with us.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
Where can you access instruction and inspiration from scholars, apologists, authors, preachers, and activists to deepen your Christian understanding? You could enroll in seminary, but a better way might be the AFA Cultural Institute. You'll find a collection of more than 50 informative inspirational video lectures with more to come. Visit stream.afa.net to experience the AFA Cultural Institute.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. Israel and Iran continue to trade strikes as the war in the Middle East continues into its 4th week. Trey Yingst is in Tel Aviv, Israel, with the latest.
Today, the Israeli government is voting to extend the state of emergency in this country for 3 additional weeks. It comes as the Iranians are launching more barrages of ballistic missiles at Israel. Israel's advanced air defense systems worked throughout the night to shoot down the incoming fire. Some of them had cluster munitions on top, a number of impact sites reported. Both the Israelis and the Americans are still taking the fight to the Iranian regime. The Israelis say they launched a new wave of strikes against the capital of Tehran and surrounding areas, targeting not just military positions, but also remaining leadership in the command structures, along with storage facilities for the ballistic missiles that remain in the Iranian stockpile.
The Trump administration is trying to calm fears over the price of oil and gas as the conflict with Iran continues. and average gas prices approach $4 per gallon. Lauren Simonetti reports from Houston.
Energy Secretary Chris Wright says the only reason the U.S. is able to weather it is because of record high oil and gas production. Wright says once talks begin to end this conflict, we will see prices drop like a rock, and the Strait of Hormuz will be back in business.
We had gasoline prices below $3 a gallon, and we'll again have gasoline prices below $3 a gallon.
Including tapping reserves, the first oil from the SPR has hit the market. That's over 1 million barrels a day. And temporarily unsanctioning Iranian oil at sea, that's 140 million barrels now hitting refineries.
The big oil refinery in Texas is shut down after a fire and explosion.
No one's reported to have been hurt in the explosion at the Valero refinery in Port Arthur, Texas. People miles away said their homes shook. A shelter-in-place order was announced for the west side of the city. The air is being monitored and schools are closed. Road closures meant kids attending after-school activities in the Sabine Pass neighborhood on a peninsula couldn't get home to other parts of the city. The plant is Valero's largest. About 770 people work there. It refines crude oil into gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel. The fire is believed to have been started by an industrial heating unit used in the process. Chris Foster, Fox News.
Airport chaos continues as TSA workers go unpaid during the partial government shutdown, with the Department of Homeland Security, which oversees TSA, still without funding. Republican Senator Ted Budd of North Carolina with some words for TSA agents and thoughts on who's to blame.
It's completely irresponsible on the part of Democrats to do this, and it's irresponsible to the 50,000 TSA workers and all the DHS workers that are doing a tremendous job out there. And for the TSA workers, I sympathize with you.
President Trump deployed ICE agents to airports to help out, but Democrats are criticizing that decision, with Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer calling it callous. But Border Czar Tom Homan pushes back.
The wait lines are already dropped. Plus, we're doing a security function at the airports. We're going to arrest criminals going through this airport. We're going to look for human trafficking, sex trafficking, money smuggling.
And finally, an infamous abortionist has died. Chris Woodward has more.
Kermit Gosnell is a former abortionist from Philadelphia, and he became infamous for killing babies in live birth abortions. Gosnell was convicted of multiple life sentences for killing these babies, as well as getting 30 years on a federal drug charge. Stephen Ertelt, editor of Life News, said Gosnell also ran a pill mill.
Honestly, this is a good reminder for people that we need to get right with Jesus. This is somebody who engaged in brutal, evil practices. And unfortunately, I don't think there's any indication this man claimed to know Christ as his Savior and had a relationship with God.
Meanwhile, Ertelt says there are other Kermit Gosnells out there today.
Mainly because so many states, and these are all blue states, have abortions up to birth. And so we know that there are late-term viable babies after 21 weeks who could live outside the mother's womb who are being killed in these brutal late-term abortions.
For example, Ertelt said this is happening in states such as Colorado and Maryland.
Multiple states across the country have these late-term abortion businesses, and they have no regard for the life of the mother or the life of the baby.
I'm Chris Woodward.
There's more online at afn.net and on the AFN mobile app for your Apple or Android device. I'm Rusty P.
Every day, AFA offers biblical insight on issues that others aren't willing to touch in the hopes that you'll become a world changer. That's why we're offering an in-depth worldview training course called Activate. 13 different professors teaching 18 sessions, all available online, including a printed workbook to help you apply what you've learned and 1-year access to AFA streaming content to give you even more resources. Find out more about Activate and sign up today at activate.afa.net.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildmon, president of the American Family Association.
Welcome back, everybody, to today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. We got 24 and a half more minutes left on the show today. Joining me in studio, or us in studio, rather, is Steve Paisley Jordahl. Good morning, Steve.
Hey, good morning, everybody.
So Ed's here, Fred's here, I'm Tim, for those new to the show this half hour.
You're logging in at the right time, I got to tell you.
Logging in?
If you're just new to the show. If you're just starting to watch or listen,
right,
you picked a good half hour.
Right.
So, because that Chris Woodward hour was...
Chris Woodward.
That was...
You can't...
So you saying it was subpar?
No, not at all. Not at all. I'm just saying You've picked
He
a good
just
half
saying.
hour.
That's a nice shirt you got on. That's a
Thank you.
black shirt with the Beatles from, is that their Abbey Road?
That's the Abbey Road cover.
album?
And a little bit of
with color, a lot of
yeah.
color. I like that.
Yeah.
Who's in order?
Okay, so if I can see.
It's the one where they're walking across the street.
Yeah, so it is, if I'm correct, that is George Harrison, Ringo Starr, Paul, and then John, I think.
John Lennon.
Which
So
one
that's
was barefooted?
George, yeah, I have to
One
look.
of them was barefooted. Were they all barefooted?
I
We
don't
ought
remember.
to do a recreation of that out here on our street, out here in front of the building.
With you, me, Fred, and Steve.
Right.
We can, because we have a crosswalk.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think that would be put it on a T-shirt. You talk about selling. We'd sell out.
All right, so it goes in order from my right to my left. It is George Harrison, Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr, and then John Lennon is the front.
So that's an iconic photograph
Yeah.
from the 20th century. The Beatles crossing the street there. What's your first story, Steve?
They continue to.
Who's they?
They, you know. They who do everything.
the NTSB.
NTSB.
Thank you. The National Transportation Safety Board continues to investigate the accident that happened at LaGuardia Airport on Saturday, was it? Sunday? And the regional Air Canada jet that crashed into a fire truck. They are continuing to release information. One of the things they have just released is some more ATC traffic control, air traffic control audio. In this clip, you're going to hear the pilots themselves who tragically lost their lives. You're going to hear the traffic controller, that instructed the fire truck to cross the runway admit or say that he messed up. I don't want to say admit because the investigation is still ongoing, but let's listen to cut one.
That wasn't good to watch. Yeah, I know I was here. I tried to reach out to my stuff, and we were dealing with an emergency earlier. I messed up. No, man, you did the best you could.
So that's... they're also finding that calling the two pilots that lost their lives as possibly heroes for saving other people on the plane. And Fred will talk to this a little bit more, but there is a story that they could have veered the plane away from the fire truck, but that might have caused the fire truck to hit the wing, which would have exploded and killed a lot more people. And I just want to hear, this is Anthony Roman, who's an FAA licensed commercial pilot, talking about the pilots giving themselves up. Cut two.
Without question, they did. And I believe they sacrificed themselves by remaining in a straight line. They could have veered the aircraft to the right or left in an attempt to miss that truck, but that would have created a greater problem and probably more passengers severely injured and or lost. The pilots hit those brakes exceptionally hard, and the passengers then knew something awful could happen.
Yeah. That was I saw the video from the side, not the angle that the pilots would have had. Although I don't know if there's video of that. And you're right. Two pilots, the pilot and the co-pilot, sadly, they lost their lives in this accident that took place. Now that first audio we heard.
The air traffic controller.
Where the guy says, I messed up, and then the other guy says, you did the best you could.
Right. Yeah, he was right after the impact. There was another airliner, a Frontier airliner, that landed, and this ATC, the air traffic controller, was talking to him. And the Frontier pilot tried to comfort this ATC guy, saying, look, you did everything that you could. And this ATC guy, he obviously feels bad. In an earlier audio, you heard the air traffic controller calling out to the fire truck, stop, stop, stop. And the fire truck did not. Now, the investigation is underway. I'm not clear as to whether the ATC guy that we're hearing was on ground control talking to the fire truck, because there's two different frequencies. When the airplane is actually landing, they are talking to tower. When you land, the tower says switch over to this frequency, which is ground frequency. The fire truck presumably would have been on the ground frequency. This all has to be kind of investigated, because there was a rumor yesterday that because of an ATC shortage, that this one air traffic controller was dealing with both frequencies, both ground and both tower. That proved to be false. So there were two people involved. So it was a horrible accident. By the way, you always hear the miracles stories afterwards. The flight attendant appears, there's a flight attendant that usually sits up near the front, right behind the cockpit.
Yeah, facing the
crowd. That flight attendant, because of the impact, the chair she was sitting on was thrown 300 feet. They found her 300 feet from the fuselage of the airplane.
You mean outside?
Outside.
She was jettisoned outside of the plane?
She was jettisoned outside. They found her in the seat with the seatbelt still on.
Alive?
Oh, yeah. She's alive.
That's incredible.
They've done interviews with her. Yeah. The impact threw her out. Well, if you look at the airplane, you can see the whole front end is just obliterated.
That's why the pilot and co-pilot died.
That's right.
The impact there on the front of the airplane.
Yeah.
And none of the passengers were hurt, right?
There were about 40 passengers taken to hospital, and about 30 of them were released pretty quickly. There's some more that had some more severe injuries. They're still in the hospital.
Yeah, next story.
I do have, can I ask one more question? It would seem to me that if there was ever a place where you could train artificial intelligence to help control a confusing situation, it would be air traffic control, because it's
you first.
All kinds
you
of
first,
moving,
Steve.
I know.
It's
all kinds of moving parts, and if we can get inside of
kind of a fail-safe.
Well, if we can get inside of diseases, it seems like an environment made for artificial intelligence, which can take a ton of data and analyze it very quickly. And we're always hearing that the air traffic control systems are old and need to be replaced. Has there been any talk, Fred, that you're aware of artificial intelligence maybe being brought in?
And then I have an opinion.
Okay.
Come back to me.
Okay.
Don't forget me over here. Should I keep my hand raised? Go ahead, Fred.
No, I have not heard. To answer your question, I have not heard from Transportation Secretary Duffy about AI being incorporated in that situation. But having flown some airplanes, boy, I would be reluctant to be dependent on AI in a situation like this.
That's what I was going to say. I appreciate what you're saying, Steve, and I know computers have changed the world overall for the better. And I could see AI entering the picture here. Don't tell me that before I get in an airplane, because if I'm a pilot, and I've never been a pilot, but like Fred has, I want to talk to a person on the ground in an air traffic control situation who's physically, like we've always done it, who's physically watching the planes. Yeah, they use computers themselves. I mean, but just to turn it, it's almost to me like these driverless cars. Okay, I know they're going to tell me, well, a driverless car is safer than you driving. Well, I don't care.
Until it's not.
Yes.
Until you're waving your hand under a faucet that doesn't seem to turn the water on.
Right, you know me. So I don't want to drive this car.
Right.
I want to drive myself. So I'm going to be. I don't know about turning over our air traffic control.
I could see AI possibly being used for traffic at altitude. So reading where planes, like I've shown you guys the flight aware, on any day there's a lot of traffic at 30,000 plus feet. I could see perhaps AI helping out in separation of traffic. But for when you're landing an airplane.
All right, so let me ask you on that. do pilots actually take off and land, or when does autopilot come in? Do you know?
Well, autopilot on takeoff, the pilot has control.
Okay.
All right. But soon after takeoff, you get up to 3,000-4,000 feet. You can press a button, and then the computer takes over, basically. But
That's when they play video games.
ATC may be still talking to you because there may be a variation between the time that the flight plan was filed and now you have a new situation out there.
Yeah, so these pilots can't walk off. They can't go and make a sandwich.
No.
They're always in their seats, prepared to take over.
Now, you do have technology today that does allow for what's called 0-0 landings.
Yeah.
In other words, a computer can land the airplane. But again, I think if you talk to most pilots, they don't want to give up that to a computer at that point.
You know what's so cool too is things are computerized. I know I was on a jet with an approach to our airport here in Tupelo, and this is true all over the country, but this was at night about 2 months ago or so, and the pilot control the lights on the runway.
Yes, you dial in a frequency.
Huh.
So
he turned it on because he was coming
in, so he could see the runway.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he lit up the runway, and then when he landed, it turned off.
Yep.
Pretty cool.
Wow.
Pretty cool. Next story, Steve.
All right. Hey, let's talk about local news.
Let's do that.
Tim, you sent around a story. It was titled, What's Behind the Decline of Local TV News?
Yeah.
I was involved in some local radio news back in the day, and I found it incredibly fulfilling and important, and it is in decline. TV news stations are struggling with their markets are declining, the ratings are declining, the revenue is not coming in like it is. The whole news landscape has changed so much that you can get news in so many different places that nobody's tuning in to either the television or maybe even radio local news to get their like weather. You can check weather on an app, right?
Yeah, this is sadly, in my opinion, I'm kind of nostalgic here, but we're seeing a change in an era, I guess, of the way things were in America for 100 years or more. Well, television didn't start. Televisions are getting to 70 or 80 years old anyway, as far as mainstream. But the newspapers, I grew up reading the newspaper, as did many people listening to me right now, and that's where I got a sneeze. Sneezed and wait till no man.
That's true.
Huh? So glad I got a cough button here, but but also the local television news, right? If you're a baby boomer, you grew up on that. Your parents watched. You watched your local television, your favorite television. Sometimes you only had one channel, maybe two. If you lived in a big city, you had maybe three. And then you had your newspaper. Well, the newspapers are, and I majored in journalism in college, so I love newspapers. You know, I didn't mind my hands having ink on them. I would just would read everything. Start with the sports, which is the most important part of my world growing up, and then the news, and then the editorials and the letters to the editor. Now that I've reached my age, I'm 63, and Allison, my wife's 63 now. She reads the obits first, see who died. That's morbid, but
yeah, but because you know more of the people who are in the obits.
That's right.
Yeah.
How'd you know that?
Well,
same with you.
Yeah. Well, I don't, but my wife does.
Right.
Hey, did you hear who died? No, I don't want to know.
I don't want to know.
I know.
I want to say, hey, where's so and so?
Yeah, look at this
He died
obit
years ago.
This obit's like 3 columns long. Anyway, so but I do think it's kind of sad that our local television news is going out of business.
I spoke with Curtis Houck of Media Research Center about this yesterday, and here's what he had to say about this. Cut 12.
Smartphones have created the ability for us to get the weather right outside our window or look at Google Maps without having to check the local news.
Yeah.
It's a combination of the rise of the internet and also amusing ourselves to death situation. The payment structure just isn't there as what it used to be. And I think a lot of Americans increasingly are also nationally focused.
I do think weather over the last 60 years has been a big draw for the local news.
Yeah.
The weather. And
maybe
often
kept them alive, these stations.
Oftentimes, your 10 o'clock news, that's what we experience here in the Central Time Zone. Maybe in the Eastern Time Zone, they do 11. And now sometimes you got your local news, you're doing it at 5 or 6 o'clock. That became a trend. But nowadays, I know as much as my meteorologist by clicking on my Weather Channel app.
Yeah.
I know what the weather's going to be 14 days from now, 10 days from now. You can look at the radar. So the weather, everybody has access to the weather, so that's not a draw for the news, for the local television news, unless you have a personality that people like to tune into, maybe.
Yeah.
Something like that. But now sports, I don't know, sports, you get your local high school sports. Maybe go ahead, Fred.
No, I have some really fond memories of local television, local radio.
Yeah.
They brought.
Did you do local radio yourself?
I did local radio and had some experience with television, but it brought the community together. It really did. It brought the community together. My local TV station when I was growing up, for instance, at Christmas time, they would invite school choirs in.
Yeah.
And they would do Christmas carols. And
live.
Yeah. In fact, I have a funny story about my dad. He was so excited live. His son, I was part of the choir. And he tried to take a picture with a flash camera.
Oh, no.
And he put a Christmas bulb in instead of the...
What happened?
It's so...
Oh, man.
Anyway, he missed the moment. But it was great. And the local radio station where I worked had at 10 o'clock in the morning, the station owner had his own show, and it was called Swap Shop.
Yeah, I remember those.
And you could call in, and you could, I have a dog for sale, or whatever the case may be, a cow, whatever.
Those are the days, man.
It was fantastic.
I know.
And everybody kind of listened for that because it was local, live radio. It was wonderful.
Well, I just have a little funny story about that. So it's the 70s. I probably late junior high, maybe early high school. And my dad, every time I would come down for breakfast on a school day, my dad's already up. He's been up for an hour or two, whatever. He would always watch, for us, the local news came out of Boston.
Yeah.
Okay, so we were 35 minutes away.
WLBZ?
WBZ was one of them.
Yeah.
And so he would always watch the Boston news in the morning. You got to come down for breakfast and the news is on. Well, he started switching over, or maybe they started switching over to the national broadcast of the Today Show.
All right.
I had never watched it. My dad had never watched it. The first couple of days it was on, they would open the show with this. Today is March 20. No, it says it's March 24th. Welcome to Today. And my dad and I would just laugh. We would say, well, what day do you think it is, genius, Captain Obvious? And then we figured out, embarrassingly, that the name of the show was Today, the Today Show. Welcome. He'd say, welcome, this is Today. And we would just say, the dummies. Well, we were the dummies.
Local TV, local radio, that's what made me fall in love with radio. And I was in love with radio growing up through high school. It was a different day. We didn't have national news.
Yeah.
I mean, there was 3 channels, and you got it at 5 or at 6 or whenever, Walter Cronkite came on.
And those shows initially were only on for 15 minutes.
Right.
And then they moved to a half hour.
It was a half hour back when I remember.
And then they moved to an hour.
But there was a massive storm that hit the Bay Area sometime in the late 70s. And the big station, KGO Radio up at San Francisco, started doing call-ins. And it's like all the power was out. But if you had a battery radio, you could still listen. and someone would call in and said, listen, my mom lives on Fordyce Road, and I heard that it's underwater. Anybody have any information about that? And then someone would call in and say, Fordyce Road is fine or whatever. Or I can't reach my in-laws. I can't reach out to my family. I want them to know I'm okay. And to me, the immediacy of that, the utility of that, the helpfulness of that, it wasn't just like my favorite song. It was important to know. And I fell in love with radio right then, and it's been a lifelong love of mine.
Yep. Well, don't you think Facebook changed a lot of that too?
Well, just I think the internet,
the internet in general,
just the internet. I mean, to Steve's point, and the one Fred's making too, we were more community centric back then. Now,
Right.
hardly anybody. I don't say hardly anybody, but so many people, especially younger generations, they think about their communities in terms of their friends in school, but the focus seems to be on more national and international things.
You know, I was thinking too about like when we were back in the 70s and even till the internet came on, you would look in the newspaper for movies.
Yeah.
If you wanted to go to the movies on Friday night or Saturday night, whatever, you had to look in the newspaper to see what theater, if you had more than one,
right,
and then what time the movie came on.
And then you paid your $3 to get in.
And I'll tell you another thing I appreciated about the 70s too.
Yeah.
There wasn't 30 minutes of ads before a movie came on.
In fact, you usually got little cartoons.
You got a couple cartoons.
Or Three Stooges or something before the movie. Sometimes you had two movies. I remember back when you
double feature.
Could double features.
Yeah, double features. Yeah, those,
I paid 75 cents
back in
where
the
I was
day.
going. Yeah.
Do what now?
75 cents
to get in the movies.
Yeah. My dad remembers a nickel.
Yeah.
Oh my! Back in the 30s.
Now am I older than you? I don't remember. I remember about $3 is when it started for me.
This might have been a little bit of a discount theater. I don't remember.
I'm guessing maybe.
Yeah.
Got about a minute to go here. Reminiscing here.
Well,
the good old days.
Donald Trump continues to tear down or reverse all the woke that went on in the 2020s. He has placed a statue of Christopher Columbus outside the Eisenhower Executive Office building. One was torn down in 2020 and tossed in Baltimore's harbor during the
disappointing.
Yeah, so we're getting back to
but that's
honoring
good. It was
Columbus.
disappointing. It was thrown in the harbor, but somebody retrieved the actual statue.
Yeah,
and President Trump put it back at the.
It's a replica of the one that was turned in. I think they kind of defaced it to the point or.
Anyway, Christopher Columbus deserves. It's called the District of Columbia because that's after Christopher Columbus.
Right.
He was a great explorer that led to the Americas.
An Italian, if I'm not mistaken, there, Ed, right?
Yes, yeah. Genoese.
We're out of time.
Like the bologna. I'm not making a political statement.
Bologna, that's in
I
Italy
was just
too.
kidding. It's not Genoese.
All right, we're out of
bologna.
time. We thank you for yours. My thanks to Steve, Ed, Fred, Brent, Cole, and Chris. We'll see you tomorrow.